Steve Swanson, he did his PhD in physical organic chemistry at the University of Glasgow, Scotland. Then he did his postdoc in the US in Brown University. Then he joined Glaxo, it's called, 1982 as a medicinal chemist. Over quite a few years, 30 years now, he's worked on many disease targets like diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, central nervous system indications, and currently is a project leader in the respiratory therapy area. And he's also interested in the IT side of this whole thing, so he's been involved in internal projects, and this is one of the reasons he is here in our UGM.
Thank you very much, Ken. I hope you can hear me. I'm delighted to be here for two reasons in Budapest. One is to give you a view of a user of some of the tools which you've heard described. And if I've got time at the end, I also wish to issue a personal apology to the Hungarian nation, which I hope you'll give me time for. Anyway, so like the previous user, I'm not an IT person. I do not know what a data cartridge does or what an API does. And network latency, I'm told, is very important in our business, and I haven't a clue. But I am a user of JChem and Excel. I use Spotfire, I use Electronic Lab Notebook. But my day job, as I said before, is being a project leader in respiratory. But also, for the last about 15 years, I have been dragged out of my laboratory from time to time to sit in various groups to help the IT community put better tools out for the chemists. And if you've been part of major pharma, then one of the problems has been over the last about 20 years, the number of pharma companies has gone down, which has led to, if anything, a more complicated environment for everyone to work in. So about 3 or so years ago, there was a project called CRISP was started up, which looked at our environment and said, we've got to make this simpler in some way. And within that project, Rich has already talked about the RAS project dealing with registration. There was a data cartridge, whatever that is, project as well. But I was asked to lead, from a business standpoint, a project that was known as the SAR Tools replacement project. So we were going to take a whole number of tools, some of which were external, some of which had been developed in-house, and we were going to try and simplify those. So the first thing we did, and I think this was spoken about last year, I think Karen came here, was the replacement of a number of tools using a product called Helium Excel, in which is integrated JChem for Excel. And then the second aspect was to replace ISIS with Instant JChem, which will form the bulk of my talk. It was understood at the time there was a big change taking place, that we had to engage users, and so they picked me to lead the business effort in that case. So what did I do in terms of putting together a user group? The first thing I decided to do was we had to representation being a global company from as many of the other sites as possible, because despite the fact that medicinal chemists do similar jobs, they don't do the same job at different sites. They've all got their different flavors of how they do medicinal chemistry. So the other thing is I'd been involved in projects where we'd had user group meetings which had about 120 people sitting on a telephone line, all giving their view of how they thought things should go. And as a result, we never got any consensus on anything. So the first thing I said was, all right, I want a core group which is going to be decision making. And we will meet on a very regular basis. We'll get people from the different sites so we get the different flavors. We'll give them responsibility for getting in the information from the local sites. I'm not going to tell RTP how they do their job as long as they don't try to tell the UK how we do our job. So that's their responsibility. The other thing was we would meet every week, once a week, Friday afternoon. It was my favourite day of the week for more than one reason. And we'd meet with the IT project team. And that's 7 of us plus the IT team could actually make decisions on whether the users were getting what they wanted. And we soon discovered as users we actually had a tremendous amount of power. If we said we didn't want something, we wouldn't take something, it actually influenced the way in which the application was developed. So it was great. However, 7's not a big number. It doesn't represent the whole of the thousands of people who work in R&D. So we asked these 7 scientists to go out and find another sort of half a dozen people in their local area who did the science and used the tools. And said, you find these people. They represent maybe mostly chemistry, of course, but other business functions who do strange things with the tools that are unique user stories. So find out from them what they want the tools to do, but also it comes with the job. They're going to have to do the testing of it as well and give us feedback as we're going along. Phase 1, which was reported on last time, was the replacement of all these tools, what we call Discovery Explorer, Chemistry Spreadsheet, with a tool called Helium for Excel. And personally, I love Helium for Excel. I love JChem for Excel. I think they're fantastic. I also love Spotfire too. So there you go. By the way, later on I'm going to say some negative things. So I'd like you just to say some nice things now about all these applications. And it comes to the other thing, and I better say it now. This is not just a thing about Instant JChem or even ChemAxon. The GSK environment's a very complicated thing. Putting anything in there comes with its own set of problems. So Rich is here to answer any technical questions on why things don't work so well in the GSK environment. It's not just the fault of Instant JChem and ChemAxon. Anyway, moving right along. So we did this and we put Helium out and the users loved it. They thought it was fantastic. No one was crying to say, why have you taken away CAS? Why have you taken away DE? Why have you taken all these tools? And they took it up. Spotfire was a little bit trickier. There was a lot of people who loved Decision Site. So when it switched to TIBCO Spotfire, what we call DXP, it required your brain to turn upside down just a little bit. And then other users found this a bit difficult, but they're getting there. They're getting there on how to use it. I like Spotfire. I like DXP. I like the way you can put tables together. It's great. Now, at the same time, though, most people in companies know that resource, particularly in IT, is being cut all the time. So if you want to get people to do jobs like the previous speaker, to set up a database, then you go to the scientists and ask them to do as well. So there's some new scientist roles were created to assist with the support of the applications, a single point contact for the application. And I'm the business system owner for Helium for Excel and JChem for Excel. But we also get some people who can assist locally in how do I do this, how do I use this tool. But as the support goes down, some of the support actually comes into the business itself. However, once we'd done that and we were all celebrating and going out to the pub and having a drink thing, what a great thing that was, we then realized we're coming down to the second part was we're going to have to get rid of ISIS and replace it with Instant JChem. It was actually the getting rid of ISIS that was the real problem because they didn't know what Instant JChem was at that problem. And immediately they came back with the question, why are we changing? I mean, why do we have to get rid of ISIS? It's a wonderful tool. We love it so much. And we said to them, well, there's a number of reasons. One is, it hasn't changed for about, 10 years. And so we want a product that's moving forward where you can do things and do different things from what you do now. And the other thing is, it's going to stop being supported. So if someone's going to bring down an axe at some point and say, from this point on, you can't use it. There's probably some money involved as well, but I don't get involved in these things at all. So what was sitting? Where was ISIS embedded? It's all been mentioned. It's an ISIS draw. So the first of the projects from this crisp simplification was to replace ISIS draw, or to come down from 2 drawing tools to 1. So the idea was get rid of ISIS draw. We were already using ChemDraw in electronic lab notebooks, so let's just use ChemDraw. That's the way it was. Okay, so we did that. But of course, no one took ISIS away. So everyone who wanted to use ISIS draw still used ISIS draw, and we used it in ISIS base, so it was still there. So no one saw any real difference. Nothing had been taken away. And then there's the whole business of databases, and we use some terms here. The chemists call them Hviews. They are, Rich tell me, they're federation of hosted databases, not local databases. So if I'm in Japan or China, I can still access my project database through the GSK thing. It comes with a cost, but it's what people have come to know and love. In terms of searching, we have our main database called GSK Chem. There's SAD Finder. As far as users concerned, the result you get out of doing an ISIS-based search is the correct result. Anything else you might use, whether it's daylight, whether it's anything else, if it's a different result, it means there's something wrong. So we had to persuade some people that ISIS wasn't always right. You could get a different result using other tools. But people said it's the gold standard. We must have the same that this does. So we have these Hviews which contain structured and biological data, similar to what Thomas mentioned, but again, they were all from federated databases. So because they've been around for years, people have actually adjusted their process to using ISIS. I do it this way because ISIS helps me do it. ISIS functionality. I have to say, put up my hand when the Hviews first came out 12 years ago, whenever it was, 15 years ago, I hated them. Their performance was What? Oh, when I used them, sort of, yeah. I don't know, for GSK. GSK never takes anything until it's at least about 6 years. Oh, we have to evaluate it for that long. Anyway, they were horrible. They were so slow. But over the course of the years, they were tuned, so the performance was superb. It really was, but it took a long time to get that. The other thing was, it was supported by a group who understood data. They were called research data managers. They understood things like SQL and so on. So if you had any problems setting them up, you had these wonderful people who would do the job for you. It wasn't done by the scientists. So they were great people to have. But there was also this thing, the UK kept on saying, oh, we want things to be instant. And the US said, well, is it instant with ISIS? And we went, well, yes, it is. Well, it isn't for us. So this was the first clue that the UK and the US were different in terms of what kind of performance you got from systems. And of course, you can add on to that China, Singapore, and Europe as well. So let's give Instant JChem to a bunch of chemists. And of course, we gave it to the people in the UK. Everyone was sitting here. And this was the first impression. Yeah, it's okay. It's not been tuned, but it's slower than ISIS. Structure searching, very slow. So we'd do a search that would bring back about a million compounds. And ISIS was doing it in no time at all. And Instant JChem, you'd go away for a cup of coffee, come back again, it would still be running, and so on. But the one that really got people was as you were scrolling through records, we mentioned before, ISIS just went like that. As soon as you can put the click, it goes to the next record. This was going to, it should be instant. Functionality, fairly intuitive. We decided not to train people. We just said, here it is. You should be able to use this. It's so like ISIS. And they said, that's all right. So they said, oh, we love the list handling. That's great. It really handles it well. We like the grid view. We like the querying. However, and then the negative started coming out. And initially, this was the one that people didn't like. And again, that's just the first implementation. There was something wrong, but error messages were coming out. So we said, OK, that's good enough to go forward. So we sent it out to the US. And the US said, you're kidding. You're kidding. We can't use this. This is terrible. But GSK Chem was a lot worse than ACD. And the reason was they had their own ACD instance in the US. But the main GSK structured database was sitting about 100 yards away from where my laboratory is. It works well for me. The US said it was bad. So I said, well, what about these Hviews, where you bring biological data in? Well, what was bad has just got worse. I said, but it's great for where I am. And surprise, surprise, the biological databases were sitting right beside the chemistry databases 100 yards from me, which meant that the US was slow. Rich, you're looking uncomfortable there. Am I saying anything you don't want to hear? No?
It's all true.
It's all true.
What you don't want to hear is we're moving over to the US.
Oh, yeah, that's it. So you say to the users in the US, go and test this application. And they go, no way. I said, it's terrible. So we had a real problem engaging the testers in the US when using this. And there's a danger then that the UK is going, drive this forward, this is great, and the US is going, this is not very good at all. And not surprisingly, we had a similar pushback from Asia, almost like it's, I don't know, it's an R-squared relationship with distance from the UK, but the performance dropped off, certainly at 3,000 to 5,000 miles quite effectively. So when they eventually got going in this, they said, well, what's the thing that really hurts you in performance? Is it the way you log into the system, the schema, whatever? And they said, well, it's slow, but you only do it once in a day, so we can go over it, in the morning. They said, what about searching speeds? If you're doing a search, they went, yeah, okay, that's slow, but once we can do something else when we're doing the search, and we'll come back and then you could use it. But the big killer with this, it was the scrolling between records. As I was just going up and down with the up and down arrows in the UK, it was going forward. But the US, this was taking a long time to do. And then this was causing frustration. Oh, this is taking forever. I'll hit the cancel button. Now, I don't know if that's been fixed in 5.10 or whatever, but trying to stop an Instant JChem process is something which Instant JChem doesn't like at all. The only thing that's worse than that is trying to cancel the cancel to get it to go again. Then it's just a case of closing down, rebooting your machine and getting going again. So that's the way it goes. Meanwhile, we had a few people who were special use cases. They said, all you chemists upstairs are working with small numbers of compounds. You know what it's like when you get big numbers? And we said, no, we don't. And they said, well, I've got news for you. And they were doing more testing and saying, this is not usable. And business groups were saying, we cannot take Instant JChem. We must stick with ISIS because this wouldn't work, which is causing problems. So I have no idea what Citrix is. I've heard the word. So the solution to the problem of performance was to load Instant JChem onto Citrix. It was a separate Citrix installation, and Citrix itself caused problems. I've never had to use Citrix at all, so I have no idea what the issues are, but the complaints started coming in about Citrix. However, once you'd fought your way into Instant JChem, then things began to get better. And the performance of Instant JChem in the US was now the same as the performance of ISIS. So as far as they were concerned, they were happy. When I saw the performance, I thought it was slow. But because it was what they were used to, they were quite happy to take something which was a similar performance. And similar in Singapore and in China. They saw the same experience. What was interesting was that in between, we thought France and Spain were close enough to the UK that their performance would not be impacted by this delay. But we've, since we've deployed at the beginning of the year, France have now switched to using a Citrix solution, and Spain are considering it. So it's not just 3,000 to 5,000 miles. It's 300 miles might be far enough from Stevenage to give you this problem. So we have solutions. It has been rolled out. And I think Anna said this morning, when will people stop using ISIS is when it breaks. We actually did not give them a choice. We said ISIS will get taken away. It will happen at this point. It will go. So you'd better get used to using this. And at the moment, ISIS, the desktop, is being removed from our desktops as we speak. And it will be off everyone's desktop by the end of May, hopefully. So it's not a question of giving, because you do give them a choice. And speaking as a chemist, it will take a lot for them to move away. So you just bite the bullet and tell them they can't have it anymore. But there is still an ongoing frustration here. We've still got a two-tier system. In the UK, I do webcasts to show people how to use Instant JChem. And I'm in the UK, and they go, gosh, that's fantastic. That's fast. That really goes. Then they go away, use their own version of Instant JChem, and they go, why wasn't it the way that the person showed me in the webcast? So highest priority, and I think you put 3 exclamation marks after performance in that one, is to get overall performance, but also to remove this reliance at the moment we have on Citrix. But what about I think we had about 400 ISIS Hviews, and again, legacy projects and so on. And so how do you engage with the chemists involved? Say, make sure your migration's taking place, make sure your forms are all right, make sure everything's good. So engaging the users at that point. The IT team were, cracking a whip saying, do your work, do this, sending emails out regularly, but it was still quite slow tracking down, because sometimes the chemists had left. And so who's in charge of this project? No one knows anymore. So at the end of it, it was great, because of the 400, we've only now migrated about half of them to Instant JChem, and 203 are not migrated. We can still get to the data, we just don't have the form view. But I mentioned before this business system owner role and business expert user role in the research data management. So what's now is that this owner, and for owner you can put the word scientist, not IT person, is now responsible for the future customization and maintenance of their own individual Instant JChem project. And that's a big burden, a big overhead for a scientist to have. So here are some of the gaps which we are saying are there at the moment. I know some have been addressed. We rolled out 5.7 at the turn of the year. I'm not sure which is the next version we're going to go as an enterprise solution, but substructure searching for very large hits, it's still relatively slow. Searching across the domain in the query builder, the people who use that are not happy with it. Exporting is a big one. It's interesting, I've never exported from an ISIS Hview. I've always used other tools to get that data, but we discovered there's lots of people exported from ISIS Hviews. So they wanted to do the same in Instant JChem, and selecting your data that you want to export, saving that, you can't do it, well, not in the version we have. And then printing. There was one biologist now out of our 7 in our SAR Tools group, and he goes, why on earth does anyone want to print anything? In this modern day and age, why are you printing? And he laughed at us. And we said, well, we've got form here, we've got a page 5 back, which we've got a second compound, we're sitting in meetings, we want to go, and we'll go back and look at that one, then we want to go forward and look at that one. So printing, we said it's a showstopper. unless you can get printing working properly in Instant JChem, then we're not going to take it. And that was 5.5, I think. And the printing was improved enough so that we grudgingly said we would take 5.7. But I'm delighted to see that 5.10's get even better printing. And oddly, something we cannot do at the moment is with our average PIC 50 data, we cannot sensibly sort to put the most potent compound at the top of our list. Now, I don't know whether anything's changed, and I don't know whether the architecture makes that, difficult, impossible, whatever, but it's something we consider to be, critical going forward. So back to these owners, this became more and more of an issue. They were saying, how much more are you giving us to do? Are you wanting us to turn into, database analysts or whatever? We said, no. But you're working with a development and a production environment. You're going to have to create links to the biological data. You're going to have to do all sorts of things. And the IT project team heard our pain. So what they have put together is a little web interface with a number of activities which before we had to do sitting inside Instant JChem. And once we got this, then people were beginning to say it's all right to be an owner. They were quite happy with this. So that's made our own local life in Instant JChem much better. Meanwhile, back at the chemical structure drawing, I said we went to get rid of ISISDraw so we could all go back to one. When we started to integrate ChemDraw into Instant JChem, there was an issue with some of the querying. The ChemDraw structures were not getting picked up. So in order to get the first launch out, we said, right, take out ChemDraw, put Marvin back in, and people can use Marvin. So they did put Marvin in. And guess what? The chemists started using Marvin for querying, and they went, we like this. This is really good. We like this, Marvin. So we're back to where we were before. We've now got two drawing packages. We've got Marvin in Instant JChem, and we have got ChemDraw and Electronic Lab Notebook, and if you want to make nice glossy presentations, you use ChemDraw. So the prospects for consolidation, there's no way we're moving away from ChemDraw because it's in ELN. So I think we're back to two, but at least one of them isn't ISISDraw anymore, which is the other side of it. Okay. I love ISISDraw. It's great. So, conclusions. For the success of this program, the engagement of the user community was absolutely critical. It really was. If we hadn't had that group to say this is the way to go rather than that way, I think things have taken longer. Or would have got something we didn't want, which is the other side. And it's very clear that the way we've got this set up at the moment, there's a very different performance depending on whereabouts in the globe we are. We have this 2 or even 3-tier system, and it's a serious issue. I'd say our implementation of Instant JChem is still a work in progress. And finally, as I said before, there's a number of performance and functionality gaps, which I'm hoping, whether it's 5, 10, 11 or whatever, that we can pick up and we can move forward on this. So this concludes the Instant JChem part of it. So I did say, if I've got just another minute or two, I wish to make my apology to Hungary. In my spare time, I play chess. And in 32 years ago, I was taking part in the Chess Olympics, and I was representing Scotland. And the very last round, Scotland were playing against Greece. And as it turned out, the winners of the gold medal between Hungary and the Soviet Union came down to my game because of the scoring system. I don't know if any of you play chess at all, but I mean, Anatoly Karpov was playing for Russia at the time, and a 17-year-old Garry Kasparov was in there as well. And as it says down here, all I had to do was win this game, and Hungary would have won the gold medal. And I was winning very easily. And about a few moves after this, around about here where the double question mark appears after move 36, the game turned. And I ended up losing my game to the Greek international master. And because I lost this game, the Soviet Union won the gold medal. And there's a Hungarian blog which I came across a few years ago where some people said some very unkind things about the Scottish chess team and about my performance in this game in particular. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to make my apology, and thank you for listening. Thank you. Cheers.
Why it was so slow to connect from the US or Asia to your database in the UK?
Rich?
We've actually got some of these connecting across databases that are on both sides of the pond. It really doesn't latency problems. We're, as Steve points out, it works really well in the UK. And what Steve doesn't know is I'm moving everything to the US. We have one global data center in the US, and we're going to rationalise everything for that. So it's going to work well in the US.
Yeah. Okay, because I have done some experiments connecting to our data warehouse, and I'm in Basel, the data warehouse is in Cambridge, and I didn't think that was that bad. So that's why I was surprised a bit.
It's certainly the
it's the yeah.
Being perceived as the chemist that's taking ISIS space away from the other chemists, are you getting threats from your colleagues?
No, actually no, but the representatives in North Carolina and Pennsylvania have received threats from their chemists. We've been okay in the UK. No, it's a serious point. They have got a lot of pushback, and people talk about web services, cartridges, and so on. What the user sees is Instant JChem, and so they just fix all their sort of what is wrong with Instant JChem and ISIS. And so there are some groups have been trying to find ways to say, what if we actually download everything, put a little local ISIS database there? Then we say to them, no, ISIS will be stripped off of your desktop. So there's no point trying to hide a local ISIS database, but it is an issue. But what it has enabled to do is to actually show people other ways to do some tasks. I mean, Instant JChem isn't the solution to all, SAR problems. So, we've been trying to educate people to, when maybe you should use Spotfire, when you should use Helium XL and the other tools that we have, and give them alternatives.
Right, Tim?
Yeah, just want to comment.
Sorry, he's taller than me.
Just comment on some of these performance questions. I think the problem fundamentally is that GSK are accessing it across the pond on a high latency network, and the protocol has been too chatty. And so we've been making a lot of focus on reducing the chattiness and improving performance and understanding how to tune it. I think that probably explains a bit of the difference between what Steve's describing and what Anna's describing, because Anna's at least 2 versions ahead. And as Peter just described, there are some significant improvements just made that'll be coming out in 5.10. And I think there's quite a bit of tuning that can be done. So I'd love to actually see what the difference is when you use, let's say, 5.10 when that comes out. If we got
the users are desperate to give it a shot, seriously. Yeah. So they'll be quite accommodating.
I just want to comment that even though we are a smaller organization, we also work across the pond and see the same problem. Our layman solution to this is that we have set up a remote desktop. So if you're not a big organization, then you can actually access IJC remotely, and that works well.
It was one of the things that was suggested, actually, to do the testing, because the American users didn't want to access it locally. There was some remote desktop set up that they could access just to do their testing and their acceptance testing of their own Hviews. So we did give it that a shot. Yeah.
Actually, thanks for Steve for the presentation.